Okay, cool. Okay, so bicep and tricep, as I noted, if we're talking about relational motion, if I'm going to assess the movement of the bicep or tricep perpendicular to fiber direction, the humerus has to stay still. Lateral is an easy place so you can see this. Supine is a good place to do this. Seated, a little bit more control is required. So really, because of where you'll hold, you'll almost always be in front of the person. You just don't make big movements with your hand and you won't wiggle them. So it's the same thing as always. If he's in seated and I do this and I see that, okay, I'm not doing it right. Same thing in lateral. It's just in lateral, it's a little bit easier to do. So as far as the tricep is concerned, you can basically just leave the arm at the side. Usually, even though this puts a minor amount of tension on the tricep, you benefit from the arm being here as opposed to here. It just ends up being a little bit easier to move things around. You literally just grab. Often I talk about the sound of one hand clapping. So if you bring the thenar portion of your hand toward and your finger pads together, anything that's in there kind of gets squished. So it can look just like this. Now sometimes, right, so you see how his elbow's moving all the way around? I've got an issue. So now it's a still humerus, right? The humerus is now still. The humerus is not still. The humerus is still. So if I said I was testing the soft tissue of the tricep, you can't believe me. Now you can believe me, right? And then as far as the work is concerned, I can start to use the region of the elbow to move the humerus against, right? So it's hard to see here, but basically if I change and I do this, you can see I just moved the elbow, right? This hold ends up being a little bit better because the thenar portion can be long here and then I've got the finger pads underneath. If I'm here, it's a little harder to do, right? It's not bad, right? Actually, I'm lying. Either way is fine, right? This is working okay. But the challenge that I have now is actually moving that. So I actually don't have as good of a grip on the tissue. It's not connecting. You agree with that? When I'm up here, it connects a little bit better, right? It just works a little bit better. As far as the bicep is concerned, it does end up being beneficial. So this is bad. This is good, right? Now, again, like I'm being flippant about this. So like, would you believe me? Right? Right now, if I come in here, so the elbow straight does put tension into it. The further I come up around here, the more that I get into the proximal attachments having tension on them. So a little bit away from the body, bent elbow. Now you believe me that I'm testing that soft tissue. And then if I wanted to get into treatment and I wanted a still muscle moving bone, so here I'm using this handle of the radius and ulna in order to move the humerus in a rotatory fashion or in internal and external rotation against the bicep or underneath the bicep, right? So if I go here and I try to do it like this, it's not gonna work. The control becomes poor. And also here, I can adjust based on what I'm trying to do. So it's like if here, it's almost like I give you a bit of a bicep pump, but if I'm here, it's nice and reasonable, right? If I go here, it starts to feel a little stretched. It doesn't really do much here. This is okay. But when I shorten it too much, it's like all of a sudden it's like a little ball building in my hand. It feels mildly uncomfortable to you. That's fair, right? So that's where you're always paying attention to how the patient's responding. That muscle shouldn't start to feel extra firm. I can add tension to it, but it should not feel significantly different to what I did to start. It should feel relatively similar. Little tension added, no problem, right? So, you know, this does nothing. You agree this is nothing? This is something. The very, very minor differences in how you do this really matter, and that's why you move at a reasonable pace. You don't move too fast. You move in a way that doesn't make them have to protect themselves, as evidenced by any form of abrupt response, right? So that all matters. And also good contact, good contact, good contact, right? Same thing here. I can have a little bit less contact, but if I don't have proper contact with the humerus, I'm not doing it. Now I'm doing it, right? It's a minor difference that makes a lot of difference. It's a minor difference in detail for what I do. It makes a lot of difference with respect to my outcome goal, which is a still humerus, moving tricep, and then it becomes a still tricep, moving humerus to some degree. I can also do this once I've got it, right? I can do that. It's not really all that useful. Similar in all other positions. The triceps a little harder to kind of get the humerus to move in relation to, whereas the biceps a little bit easier. But you can definitely get both. All right, sweet. Thank you.